Welcome to video 3 of chapter 10, where we will look at regulation of emotions and self-control. So first of all, as it says here, newborn infants have very little ability to regulate their own emotions. In fact, their frontal lobes just biologically are not developed enough for them to exercise any form of self-control until about 6 months or so. So it makes no sense to get mad at a newborn baby in the first 6 months of life because they're crying or something. They really just do not have the biologically developed brain yet to exercise self-control. Their first attempts at emotional regulation involve self-soothing behaviors. So, for instance, thumb sucking is a common one. Clutching a blankie. They also learn to turn their head away from things that are upsetting. So some very basic, it starts with some very basic behaviors for them to help to control their emotions. Adults who provide sensitive caregiving and positive emotional role modeling also play a role in the development of emotional regulation and self-control. So if you want to provide an environment without a lot of chaos, if you want your infant to learn to control their behaviors and their emotions, it's best to have predictable routines for the infant, and that kind of gives them a controlled environment, and for them to learn self-control. And you also want to model controlled emotions. So you don't want a lot of yelling and emotional outbursts around the infant. That just makes it that much harder for them to learn proper control themselves. Okay. Parents, there are two basic ways that parents help to teach their children to deal with their emotions. And we call these emotion dismissing parents and emotion coaching parents. So emotion dismissing parents minimize the importance of emotions, and they instead try to distract or cheer up their child so that the negative emotion will pass. So they might say things like, oh, it's just a scratch, or it's no big deal, or it will get better. Don't worry, it'll get better. This is not helping to teach an infant or a toddler, to learn about emotions and to learn to control their emotions, and to understand their emotions. Now, it's one of the most natural things in the world to want to cheer somebody up, like especially a child or an infant, when they're upset or sad. And so maybe you make funny faces and you try to get, make them laugh, and because they're crying. And so these parents that we call emotion dismissing parents, in no way am I saying that they are, bad parents, or, they want to protect their children from their feelings. So if their child's upset, they want them to get past it, and so they will use techniques to distract the child from their negative emotions. Whereas emotion coaching parents help their children explore and understand their feelings. So when the child is upset, they will validate the child's feelings and label the emotions that the child's feeling. It seems like you're really afraid right now, or you seem angry, or you seem hurt or upset. and they will, so they will validate the feelings and give it a name and acknowledge what the child is feeling rather than just trying to distract them right away. And then also, an emotion coach and parent might then discuss what the child could do to make the situation better. When I'm feeling a little afraid, this is what I do, or this is, maybe you could try to do this, and so, like, you have a little conversation about what they're feeling, and about what they might possibly be able to do. And this is giving them an understanding of these emotions rather than just trying to move on and say, it's no big deal, or, just wipe away your tears. I mean, so one thing that I find a little interesting is whenever I talk about this, it reminds me of an men's group that I used to um, that I used to facilitate and host out of my home in the past in Rochester, and one of the most basic rules we had is that, when a man starts to experience emotions and they start to cry or weep, or maybe get angry, or, I mean, that you were never to try to distract them away from that. So, like, men in my group knew enough not even to hand a tissue to another man that was crying, because the whole point was to let them feel what they're feeling. And even something that seems nice, like handing somebody a tissue, is kind of unconsciously saying, you know I'm uncomfortable with your tears, or, wipe away your tears. What we would try to do in our group is, like, encourage them to feel it even stronger, and like, to explore that emotion, because the more you feel it, then you can arrive at a better understanding of why you're feeling it and what it's connected to. But in society, we're very used to trying to cheer people up, or to hand them tissues when they cry, and I'm not saying that that's wrong. I mean, it's very polite to hand somebody a tissue when they're crying. I mean, especially if you're not, you know, in a personal growth group or something. But it's the same kind of idea as the emotion coaching versus emotion dismissing, and because it still operates at an adult level. I mean, we're not parents to other adults, but if you're really close to somebody, and and you want to if you want to, maybe help them grow, and then don't distract them from their emotions. In fact, I mean, you can even push them a little bit further into the depths of their emotions. Like, tell them, get them to experience it fully. There was nothing more cathartic than really immersing yourself in an important negative emotion. And so, anyways, it always reminds me of that, because it's a little bit similar idea, and that in society we often are emotion dismissing with others, and we just try to cheer them up, and we try to, we unconsciously ask them to stop crying by handing them tissues, and it's kind of like, in a sense, almost saying, like, I'm uncomfortable with your tears. And so it's the same idea with children. Don't distract them. Don't, explore the emotions. Now, I'm not saying push the child deeper into a negative emotion, but at least explore it with them, and find out what they're feeling, and this will give them a much better emotional understanding. Um, we've you know we've all been around other adults that aren't good at emotions, or understanding their emotions, or even understanding their own emotions. And more often than not, it does tend to be males in our society, and that's because of how we've raised them in the past. And males, especially in past decades, I mean, their emotions were often dismissed during childhood. They heard the big boys don't cry message, and were told to suck it up, and so no wonder they grow up to be adult males that aren't in touch with their feelings and their emotions. So, anyways, I know I'm going off kilter a little bit here, but it always makes me think of that, because it's the same idea, And so as a parent, you can start early without being cruel. I mean, you can start early in exploring emotions and help them think about, what they're feeling and understanding it. Okay, let's go on. Oops, too far. Okay. So I'm going to start with executive function, and I've mentioned this term before. It's a term that really comes out of information processing research, and it's kind of like your control center. As it says here, it's the aspect of thinking that allows us to plan ahead, organize our responses, control our attention so you can move it around and decide where to focus it, and also to allot cognitive resources to where they are needed. So it's kind of like your mental control center that's making decisions about what you should do next, what you should think about, where you should put your attention. And the development of executive function has really been linked with this concept of effortful control, which is the ability to consciously control one's behavior. So, these are very much related. In order to have a good executive function, I mean, you need to have some kind of control over your behaviors. And example, when you think about effortful control, what that means, it's like a good example is something like dieting. I mean, anyone that's been on a diet knows that it takes effortful control. I mean, like you have to consciously make decisions, to control impulses, and to at times delay gratification, and in order to stick to the diet you're on. And if you lack that control, I mean, you'll be unsuccessful as a dieter. And so they start studying effortful control in the preschool years. And one of the tests that they use or have used to measure and study it is the marshmallow study. The marshmallow study is specifically studying delay of gratification, which is a form of effortful control. Can you delay gratification? Can you not, like in dieting, can you not eat that thing that you want to, for instance? So we can define delay of gratification as the ability to wait until later to get something desirable. And once again, it certainly requires effortful control. And often they typically study preschoolers around the age of 4 in the marshmallow study. I mean, it can vary a little bit, obviously, but one result that I want to point out, actually, before I get to that result, I do want to mention that there is a video available. I'm not going to show it during this recorded lecture, but it's in the other videos folder in the unit 4 folder. So look up, make sure you watch that marshmallow study. You can see these preschoolers exerting effortful control in order not to eat the marshmallow. The way the study works is that you give the child one marshmallow and you tell them that, it's their choice. They could eat it now, but if they can wait until you come back into the room, then they will get a second marshmallow. So then you'll have 2 that you can eat instead of 1. And so, the test is, which children can hold off eating that marshmallow that's right in front of them, and wait in order to get, double the marshmallows. Okay. And if you watch that video, and I do encourage you to, you'll see these children doing things to distract themselves. And like you'll see like how much they want the marshmallows, they're staring at them. Also of note, they're purposely put in a room that doesn't have a lot of distractions. You'll see that they're sitting at a table in a very plain type room. So there aren't things around that they can play with to distract them. I mean, they're just sitting at a table with a marshmallow, in a little dish in front of them. So anyways, when they've studied these 4-year-olds, one result that they found was that the 4-year-olds that were able to exert self-control and not eat the marshmallow, they were better able to concentrate and tolerate frustration when they became teenagers. So, in a longitudinal study, they showed that this result from 4 years of age carried over all the way up into their teenage years, that it had benefits. So it just points to the importance of this very variable of effortful control. And children that have it, just they do better. Um, they tend to do better in school. They tend to do better socially. And as this one result pointed out, they were able to concentrate and tolerate frustration better as teenagers. So it is a very important variable. One other way that they've studied delay of gratification, I'll just mention another type study, is that they asked, they would have a preschooler and they would ask them not to peek while the researcher wrapped a present for them. So basically, you have the preschool in front of you. You say, okay, I've got something I want to wrap this gift. It's going to be for you, and I need to do it on this table in front of us. But so can you cover your eyes? So they ask them to close their eyes or cover their eyes, and no peeking. I'll let you know when I'm done wrapping it. And so they measure, whether or not the child can go the whole time without peeking, and how long can they wait before they peek. It's very hard for a preschooler not to peek at some point when they know that you're right in front of them wrapping a gift that's for them. What they found in this particular study was that certainly older children were better at this than younger children. So age is certainly a factor. And then girls tended to wait longer to peek than boys did. But there was no gender difference in the overall peaking rate. I mean, so girls were able to hold off longer, but they were just as likely as boys to eventually peak. So anyways, that's just another example of a delay of gratification type study, effortful controls type study. And one thing that self-control plays a real essential role in is the development of emotional intelligence. So just to read what's here, we can define as understanding and controlling one's own emotions. So that takes effortful control. Understanding those of others, and being able to use all of this understanding to navigate human interactions successfully. And so for children with better self-control tend to have better emotional intelligence, because they can control their emotions, which is really good in social situations and in friendships and in your peer groups. The other thing that obviously helps with emotional intelligence is going back to the idea of emotion coaching parents. Research shows that emotion coaching parents helped to develop emotional intelligence in their children, which is what you would expect. Okay, and that will conclude video 3.